Up next, I'll invite the country head for Maersk Lanka, Mr. Biju Ravi, to join the panel. And please welcome Mr. Biju on stage as our first panelist. And after that, let me invite Chief Executive Officer of Colombo West International Terminal, Mr. Munish Kanwa, onto the stage. Let me also invite a very well-known local shipping expert, Mr. Prabhat Manimeldura, onto the stage, and he's also bringing a lot of expertise based on untagged. So that's the astrologer that I was talking of. So let me also sit and start the discussion over there. Thank you everybody. So having seen the analysts, the data and the statistics that we show, what was presented by Mr. Shailash, I would like to start with Mr. Biju, because we saw a lot of stats, let's say how the throughput is going to be, like it's only about 3% increase, like what we saw in the slides. And representing the ship owners, ship operators, we also can see a lot of overcapacity and a lot more new capacity coming into the picture. So how do you see the trend, Mr. Ravi? Like, of course, you represent one of the biggest shipping lines, and you can also speak of the shipping operators in general, and how much of new buildings are expected to come in, and at what rate the scrapping will happen, and how do you see the whole capacity thing in terms of ships going forward?
Thanks, Kingsley, and good morning, everyone. So I know it's a very unpredictable way of question because, and I think Mr. Shailesh covered it very well in his presentation on the capacities and all with clear data. But what I can see is definitely in the next 4 to 6 years of time period, there's definitely going to be additional capacity because a lot of ship orders which was placed in the last 3 years were more from the pandemic-induced capacity. So those ships are started coming out, and I believe 25 is going to be one of the biggest year when a lot of capacity is going to get added, and as he said, 1.4 million TEU. And what we see is in the next 5 years, maybe 2030, we are looking at almost 7 million TEUs of additional capacity in the market. And that's going to be like a good 25% additional capacity in the industry from where. Of course, this depends on how many ships are going to get scrapped. Now, that's something which is a little unpredictable because it depends with the ship owners on how they want to operate or want to position these old ships into new emerging smaller markets. So that's what is going to happen. And definitely some of the scrappings will happen because also of the IMO regulations is definitely going to happen because I see a lot of ships going to be converted now into the alternative fuels, and Maersk, for one, has been now only ordering the hybrid models with methanol is the way we are going. So we have already got out around 5 ships of methanol, and also there are another 20 ships which is going to come in the next 5 years. So we have completely moved towards that, and so will be the other shipping lines as well. So probably in the next 5 years, almost close to 200 ships can become completely the alternative fuel used ships. So with all that, I think it's going to be a bit tricky. But I think for the shipping lines, what's more important is how they manage the business and how dynamic they can keep their utilization of the ships. So we need to really look at predictive, forecasts using advanced tools today, which we have like IoTs or AI and things like that, and how agile you can be to move the ships quickly around to a different port pairs or destinations such as that. So that's kind of going to be the key. And also to manage the overcapacity, the lines have to be super agile to ensure it doesn't go underutilized or overcapacity. So that's a tricky situation which we have seen. And from the freight rate aspect, I think it's definitely going to put pressure, is what my personal take is in the coming years. We are already seeing that right now, it's happening. So until another disruption comes in the industry, which can really then take the rates up. Otherwise, it's going to be more or less stable in 2025 as of now. That's the best guess we can take sitting here today. But geopolitics is something beyond everybody's control, and we don't know how things would turn out. So challenging year, I must say, for shipping lines. Overcapacity, freight rates on pressure. This is what probably I see for the next year.
Thank you. I think, yeah, connected to the overcapacity, I think you said something very interesting. That is, some people, the moment we see the new buildings order, we get scared thinking that, they're just adding new capacity. But if we really go into detail, if we really look at the details, but most of the new capacity or new buildings are coming in line with the new greener concepts. So I can see all the major shipping lines are trying out all the alternative fuels, hydrogen to mixed biofuels to LNG to everything. And I think if scrapping happens at the same rate, we should not worry too much about it, because everyone is well set to go greener with all the new buildings coming in. Next, I would like to ask Mr. Munish, because the same impact, the ripple effect will come into the ports as well. And if shipping lines will be having more ships, and if as we predict, if freight rates will be under further pressure, that pressure will later come into you as well. So you must be having, plans on how to control the cost, how to run a port under these uncertain times. So would like to hear your thoughts, Munish, how ports and terminals are set for these future challenges.
Thanks, Kingley. I think on a lighter note, I'm a little confused whether, ports should help in increasing the freight or reducing the freight, because you have put me on the left side of the basket where, disruptants in port can actually help in terms of, maintaining the freight. But I'll not talk about freight. I'll only talk about the cost part of it. Actually, I came here with a CEO's hat, but now I have to remove it and wear the operational hat to answer your question precisely. Thankfully, after COVID, a lot of impetus has been given to ports. Probably the importance of ports has been now understood much better. The resilience and the efficiency of ports are now being talked about. We have seen even in the US when there was a strike in the eastern Gulf Coast, people were running to the departmental stores to pick up those, tissue papers, not even knowing that tissue papers are now locally manufactured. So people are giving a lot of importance to the ports, and it's true. It has now, it has become the nodal point of the global supply chains for deserving reasons. And for ports like Colombo, I would say, if you see the, container port performance index 23, Colombo is, I think, at number 40. And most of the East Asian ports and some of the, the Western ports are doing better, but we are not far behind in terms of the overall efficiency. The only thing I said I would wear the operational hat, so let me divide it, into the phases of a vessel which comes into a port. Generally six phases, right from approaching the port limits to, all fast, and to first container to the last container to all lines out to moving out. Port is responsible here in Colombo for, a fraction of it, which is the operational time. Worldwide, the operational time is around 60%, and non-operational time is around 40%. Though it depends on the size of the vessel, number of moves it makes, can go up to 75% of the operational time. But let's take the average of 60-40. So this 40% is something which is manageable, which can be reduced. Here, Biju will be able to tell it better. You will be able to tell it better. How much time does it take? Worldwide, the average is around 40 hours, 40.7 hours of port stay for the journal vessel size, which has gone up from maybe around 36 hours in last 1 year. So potentially an increase of around 11%, which is productive, non-productive you have the better data. But for Port of Colombo, I would say these are low-hanging fruits which we can pick to increase the efficiency. A vessel generally stays in the port for how much? 15%, 20% of its overall route time? So more time at the sea would reduce your fuel consumption, you can reduce the speed, you can reduce the emissions. And for the ports, I mean, this is one support which we can do. Second is, I mean, let me also talk about the 60% of the time which goes into operation. We at, I come from a lineage of a group which operates so many ports now. So for the operational time, we divided into, the operation activity time and the operation non-activity time. So operation activity time is still fine. You can increase the CGI, you can increase the crane gross rate and give the improvement. But for the non-activity time, which is operational disruptance time, can be because of breakdown of equipment, can be because of network failures, can be because of so many other reasons. So we have a continuous endeavor to kind of engage into those activities where we can take away those time thieves one by one. So similar sort of strategies we'll be adopting here as well and in the future as well. To be more productive during the operation time, standardization of operations, the procedures which we follow, automation, better training facilities for these people who we deploy, and the overall measurement of what we do. You say that you cannot manage what you cannot measure. So we deploy a strategy where we measure whatever we are doing and try to bring in the efficiency into it. And I think that's how the ports can facilitate the shipping lines, which are the primary customers for us.
Thank you, Manish. Thank you so much. So, when we combine both the shipping lines perspective and the ports perspective, my next question is to Mr. Prabhat. I mean, Prabhat, with your long experience with Maersk Submarine, and more recently you have worked very closely with USAID and done a lot of studies and analysis. So if you combine both the shipping and ports, thoughts that we heard, what do you think? What are your thoughts, like both sections put together, how we will move forward, and from the USAID point of view, what have you learned during these recent studies and in these lines?
I think it's very clear with Shailesh comments and Biju's comments that the freight rate would largely remain unchanged unless there are disruptions. Only the disruption would impact to go up in the freight sector. When it comes to the port sector, it is adding a very highly valuable part of the shipping cost. If you look at, especially in our region, the development of the port sector and the relative competition probably will help the shipping industry to have sustainable deals. And also, we heard from Shailesh that South Asia is the driver for the rest of the 4 years in the shipping industry and also in the global manufacturing industry. So considering all these things, at least for the region, I believe that we will be having relatively good cost base for the shipping industry overall, taken the ports into consideration. And if you look at another factor, like the possibilities of newcomers coming into the shipping industry. What we saw was a consolidation in the shipping industry. This large number of ship owners became smaller number of ship owners. So there are some talks that some Asian superpower would eventually invest in ships. Something like introducing a new liner shipping company, especially in the containerized trade. Taking all these things into consideration, if you look at the supply and demand, there will be a relatively oversupply in the shipping industry, I think, taking the comments of all the panelists. So to the final point of your question, port sector and shipping, that we believe the operating cost will go down with this development happening in 24, 25, and probably up to 29.
That's interesting. And
No, if,
Viju, you can add.
Kingsley, if I may just add to it. Yeah. So, like what he said, see, I would like to focus more into South Asia and Southeast Asia right now. So, you know, this is where the growth is coming from right now. This is where we will see new hubs coming in. This is where we'll see a lot of intra-regional businesses. It is very clear now with the China Plus One policy, countries like India, Vietnam, Indonesia is definitely coming up. There is ASEAN trade agreements, which is also helping Japan and other countries coming in. So what I can see is today, there are fewer traditional trade routes, which is definitely under stress right now because of the geopolitical situation. So shippers are also now looking into the newer market. Plus the buying power, if you see for especially the middle class income in Asia and Southeast Asia is growing fast. So it has its own potential market in itself. So I think shippers and shipping line needs to definitely understand that and move into these new markets, have these short intra-regional routes, create hub and spoke model, which can deliver faster, faster and on a reliable transits. I think that's something. And also the ports needs to come up with a clear hub solutions. And it has to be next to each other. So, for example, if you look at now, okay, India is there, you have Colombo, South Africa can become another relay hub for going into South America or into Americas or Europe. East Africa can become another hub. So you need to build shorter routes to reach to the final destination with the disruptions what we are seeing. Because my opinion is the long route direct vessels are not going to be an option. Because in long term with disruptions, it's very difficult to maintain the reliability for shippers. So until unless you have this multiple routes and increasing the reliability of the ships, and yesterday there was a discussion on the Gemini, right? And that's what exactly what this network is all about. How can we improve that 50, 55 to 90%, which we used to deliver as Maersk pre-COVID levels? And the only way we saw we can deliver that is through this hub and spoke model, which we are designing now. It's a tough ask. We don't have a silver bullet in hand at this stage, but it's work under progress. And I'm very confident that in the coming days, shippers will start seeing that reliability coming back. And that will be the key for them, right? Because it's every single day for a garment exporter is gold. It's expensive for them if there is a delay. And also, I think shipping lines will also divert, as we are seeing, into the other activities, not only the port to port. We are seeing now regional hubs being created for warehousing, even by shipping lines. So how can we store the cargo much closer to the end user and deliver them in a faster manner? So I think a lot of changes will come in the entire supply chain logistics of the global supply chain, and that's something will keep evolving in the next few years until it finds its optimal place. So I think that's something we all have to expect and be ready with those changes and how we can adapt and be agile to accept that.
Yeah, I mean, with that comment, I just want to ask another quick question from you. Like, it's interesting to see that Southeast Asia is growing and there is still opportunity for everyone to gain from. And for you to be successful in this region, for sure you need to have more intra-Asia coastal services. And feed operators also play a very important role in this market. So, but we can see some giants have also taken the decision of, okay, to have or to run the feeders on their own. What's your thought process? I mean, coming from Maersk, what do they really think about that? I mean, is it to be on your own, or it's always safer to depend on common feeders?
A straight answer would be it's going to be a mix of both. It's neither one way. And as I said, that the hub and spoke model will not work without the feeder operators. You need to have these feeder operators from various countries, because as a shipping line, you cannot run these feeders as efficiently as the feeder operators run it today. So there needs to be those partnerships. Now, there could be some larger areas where you have multiple feeder ports connecting into one, and if it makes sense and it checks all the boxes, then yes, shipping lines might have, or as Maersk, I might say, we might have a service. In the past also, we had a shuttle service which was like between Ennur, Colombo, and Salalah, and it kept doing that pendulum services. So these kind of mix and matches would be there, I think. But for shipping lines, I think feeder operators would be of great importance, because there are so many ports which is emerging now and coming. And today we don't have a feeder network from Southeast Asia directly, right? Okay, there are mainline vessels which is coming and calling. Do we have a exclusive service which is feeding between these two ports? No. So I think those opportunities will emerge in the coming days.
Thank you, Viju. Mr. Shailesh, with all this happening, I mean, we also can see the world is becoming more disruptive, and wars and war-like situations happening. And connected to that, there are lots of trade barriers, tariff barriers coming in. And with all these barriers and disruptions happening, how do you see the impact of these ones with the fluctuations of these volumes going forward? I think you are the best to answer that, because you must have done some studies on.
Two aspects. I think you started with how it will impact the port, and you just answered that. So yeah, I think that, from the port perspective, ports are going to face challenge of sudden surge in demand. So because you never know when these tariffs will come in, people front loading their orders, or some disruption coming, port congestion. So there is now this port will have to invest in creating capacities to handle this sudden surge which may come, or port congestions create yard capacities to hold the containers or the cargo for more time, dwell times increasing. So this is a catch-22 situation, as they will have to invest more in capacities, infrastructure, at the same time preparing themselves for the peaks, but probably not every time it will be utilized. So this is a classic situation of how you manage that capacity and still use it. So probably they'll have to couple it with technology and other things to make it more efficient, more flexible, and yeah, ready to take any such challenges. So I think that is the challenge ports are facing. They are also investing in bigger to handle bigger ships, but then bigger ships you don't get every day. So you have to again prepare for the peak and the maximum size of vessels, but maybe utilize it only for 50% of your operation time. As far as barriers, trade barriers and other things are concerned, it may impact the flow of the cargo, especially what we are looking at container trade is that we are talking of nearshoring, reshoring, so these are things happening. Now another word has come up is with the geopolitical scenarios coming in, friendshoring. So you don't want to be closer to your market, but probably in a country which you think will always support you in such times. So people are looking for friendly countries for shoring. So I think that's another angle coming into the trade flows which can happen in the future. And third, in the long term, it is going to impact the way manufacturing investments are being made. Now we are seeing China and other countries making investments in East Europe, Mexico, Turkey. So probably this will change the landscape if this continues for some more time. So you may see that cargoes flowing from these regions out to other markets. And the worst case is that if you have these tariffs and we all are fighting among each other, then definitely less maritime trade, which is the worst case scenario. We don't think of that happening. And probably even if trade happens, it happens by road and rail, because if you are doing near shoring or something, probably there is an opportunity to do it by road or rail. So yeah, so worst case is that less growth in overall maritime trade, but we don't see that happening at least for some time. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. With that, I would like to open for questions for the audience. If there are any questions, please. There are mics around, and please raise your questions, make maximum use of these experts. Of course, technically the time is up, but since we started a little late than we planned, so I would take the liberty of spending 5 more minutes for one last quick round. And if you have any questions, please do pick up a mic and ask the questions. So just one last round of quick questions, starting with Munish. in terms of, I mean, yesterday there were lots of discussions about so many new ports, hub ports coming up. There was also a thought process thinking, are we going to have too many hub ports than what is needed? Or is it well in line and, we are not going to have overcapacity scenario when it comes to the port capacity, especially in our region? We can see there are lots of mega ports coming up, and do we really have enough volumes for those ones? So what are your thoughts as final remarks or the quick remarks?
I think, Kingsley, in our region, probably India's container volumes are growing at 10% on CAGR basis. And the capacity which is coming in is not growing by that much. So I think the capacities which are coming up will only be able to sustain for only so much of time. Yesterday the figure came that Colombo port is can handle maybe roughly around 8 million TEUs, can go up to 15 million with ECT and WCT coming in, and that capacity will also get filled maybe in a span of 3 to 4 years. So you are seeing additional capacities because these are actually coming. But for our region, a 6% growth, you populate it over a period of 10 years. Probably you'll see that not many projects are coming which can give you that much of capacity in the next 10 years. So my estimate is that we are doing, but we are not doing enough in terms of building that capacity. And we were also talking about the order book which the shipping lines are having right now, and the additional dwell time which are being created because of disruptions and all that. So capacity is one thing, utilization of capacity is altogether another thing. So despite having capacity, I mean, you can see, India is handling around 22 million TEUs right now. Capacity is far greater than that, but most of the ports are choked. So having capacity is one thing, utilization is altogether another thing, and then when you populate it over a period of time, I think we can see a sure shortage in terms of the capacity.
Prabhat, any quick?
Yeah, there are two important things I want to draw your attention that I picked from some UNCTAD publications, very much close to Drewry. There are two things. The trade to GDP ratio is diminishing. It's like the countries are manufacturing, but they are less trading because of protectionism, and then trading focus more into the region rather than for the long haul, as we came into the discussion. The other point, so that aspect also has a kind of a push for a decline in the demand for long haul shipping. And also another thing to note that charter rates are down comparing to 2003 and early part of this year. So what do you see? Looking at these things, like trade volumes are kind of contracting from the shipping lines perspective. So I want to keep that as a open question for you.
Thank you for that. And Biju, a quick one, because I will not have you in the next session, which is about disruptions and how we are ready. So I would like to steal a question from that session to this one. So as a ship operator and owner, one of the biggest lines, how ready are you for any future disruptions? I mean, we have seen a lot already, and what's the appetite for any more challenges coming in?
Kingsley, I think Maersk is pretty much ready in that sense, and I'll also say why it is, because even in the past, whenever there has been a disruptions, our systems are so strong that it always gives us ample time to get to the bottom of it and see how quickly we can change the stance of, or change the whole direction for us. We have seen that during COVID happening. We have seen in few years back when we had a cyber attack, how quickly we managed to manage the business without any systems as well. So I think the strength is in its people, because we have highly skilled and knowledgeable people in our organization who runs the business on day-to-day. And I think the trainings and educations towards that is also something which Maersk takes it very seriously. And there are professional teams across the globe sitting and doing risk analysis assessments for us as well. So when things are going to be, when we hear that disruptions are there, we try to be as dynamic as we can, and how quickly can we move around the needle at that stage and support the trade. So that's always been the way Maersk has operated, and I think even for future, if there are any disruptions or any changes coming, I think we should be able to handle it well.
Thank you. So with that, I would like to, we heard the beep anyway, so it means time is up. So I would like to close the session while thanking first Mr. Shailesh for those interesting thoughts and nice slides with some good data and statistics, and Mr. Biju for your thoughts, and Prabhat, and also Mr. Munish for the interesting discussions. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next session.